My collar isn't staying popped. I'm very upset.
Is mine?
Yeah, it's fine. You look horrible. For Machine Age, we thought, what if we create a really cool species pack and chipset? And then we thought, what if we make a second one? Hello, everyone. I'm Alec. I'm a concept artist on Stellaris, and I'm here with...
Hello, I'm Felix, and I'm also a concept artist on Stellaris.
Today, we're here to talk to you about the Machine Age.
So, Alec.
Yes, Felix.
How did we approach the cybernetic species?
It's a great question. So for the cybernetics, we want to both do two things. We wanted to kind of fill in gaps that we felt needed some more attention in the existing species pack. So instead of making a whole new class of portraits like we would for toxoid, banging on the trash can, or aquatics, we kind of looked around and said, you know, we can put one in aquatics and put one in mammalian and put one in molluscoid and kind of just give everyone a little bit of that cybernetic flair. And another thing we wanted to do was create species that, while still being unique and fun, didn't have so much crazy design going on that they took away from the important part, which is, you know, having cybernetic parts. How do we do this for synthetics?
So for synthetics, we looked at like how can we take and create a robot that essentially has a biological counterpart, so that it basically ascends and keeps some of its personality with the synthetic part, which was a very fun idea and that's very fun too.
Something we've really done before. You know, most of our robots, I feel like in Stellaris, are like, we are robots, and you know, we have no interest in the flesh. And these are ones that, I mean, in some cases, you know, they're still wearing clothing. Two have pets, got like a little slug creature that one of them has. Were you designing robots first, or were you thinking more about designing the biological first and then the robot later?
Well, we definitely thought about like having, as you mentioned with the cybernetics, that the synthetic or the machine part of it is the main cue for this pack. And then we started with that, and then we jumped on to the biological part, and then we made sure that they felt like they progressed in a very natural way, but still had their personalities attached to the
I think this is the first time we've really made robot or machine portraits that kind of have like, that could be like spiritualists or like xenophiles, or like not the normal cold on carrying shells they usually are. That keeps me from playing them, because I know I'm slandering prior robots, but if they don't have clothes, I don't care. They're not. That's not fun. Yeah, of course. No, we prepared a bunch of stuff.
I just have to read through it, like seeing what.
Let's remember how we do our jobs real quick.
Yeah, let's remember. Oh no, something.
It's so full of knowledge.
Yeah.
So now, Felix, we're going to talk about the process of making a species for both the Machine Age and just Stellaris in general. Although, as we'll get into it, these have been by far the most complicated, I think, that we've ever made.
Oh,
so
yes.
How do we start?
We take a deep and dark look into the world. And then we search for like reference from all kinds of like, we have like different unknown rare species rather. And we also like wanted to mix in like both the futuristic parts, but also like these like garage punks that essentially has built their stuff in a garage somewhere in space.
I mean, we wanted to give like, I think that's the idea, to give every possible player fantasy at least one or two species to work with. So once we have our VizDev, as it's called, all organized, what's the next step?
The next step is basically to nail down a few of the like VizDev species that we've created, and then we take a closer look at them and start to concept out like a broader or a more narrow sense of that species. So
I feel like this is the talking stage of the species process, where it's just like everyone has input on this. And I think it's also like, it's, you know, people might think that it's all, here's my one design, if this isn't good, we're not going to use it. But we use a lot of parts of stuff. We like Frankenstein parts together. And sometimes we'll even design stuff that, you know, like I'll make a head and I actually have no idea what the body looks like. I just know that's a cool head, and we'll figure the rest out later. We're making something called reactive portraits, which is a fancy term for what is definitely not a nightmare of code. So on top of these portraits being more detailed and more zoomed out to show more, and having some parts brought in from toxoids, where we started making kind of custom fit clothing, these now also have kind of conditional assets in the way that if you do certain things, certain parts of it will appear. And that might seem on the surface like it shouldn't be that hard, but it turns out it's actually really hard. Detouring back into making species. So we've figured out what we're making, we've viz-dev'd it, we've talked to all the other cool art people, they all think it's cool, and now we get into the rendering.
The rendering is making sure that we continue the same art style that we have previously in Stellaris with make sure that the rendering quality also like matches. That's a huge thing that we do with the rendering.
Yeah, and that gets harder every year because
it does.
we like to think that we grow as artists, and then also the capabilities of what we can do always gets better, but we still to a degree have to keep it looking like a nice version of an asset that started in 2014. We've had times where someone's made something and we've been like, oh, this is actually too nice. Can you go back and make this look worse? Because it stands out. Because it's way too crisp.
Yeah, I've been tasked with that.
Okay, so now we've rendered things. You've listened to all the podcasts in the world.
Yes.
Creating everything as pretty as possible. What do we do next?
Well, the next step is basically to start to talk to animation and see how can we like proceed with paper dolling this. And with paper dolling, I mean cutting up the like character into 2D planes ready for animation.
When you say paper doll, it's and we can probably show an example where you have to put it on, I guess, not really a trim sheet, but just a single kind of export sheet that can look, essentially it's the species unwrapped and then it gets taken into a animation program and put back together piece by piece. And I think that's really it after it's animated, it gets in the game. I mean, throughout this whole process too, there is obviously like feedback and back and forth. And we've had some major design changes pretty late into species before, and we go back and fix stuff if we feel it's not like working right, or if we feel another species is kind of like stealing the same characteristics better. If that makes sense, because we don't want like different species kind of trying to do the same things. They kind of just it takes away from each other's uniqueness. And we also have a constantly growing like trash heap of we might come back to this later, and I think now it's at this point it's like bigger than multiple species packs worth of things just kind of left.
And it's like a love box or a love and hate box of species that are really cool.
Yeah, I think our
really
art director doesn't our art director call it the rainy day box or something?
Yeah, exactly. The rainy day box.
So it's all done, and then it goes into the game, and that's when you, the player who I'm pointing at, will play it, I hope.
Oh yes.
And enjoy it.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Nah.
No, we're not doing
well,
this.
we're not doing this.
Hello, my name is Cassie.
Let's stay in it.
One more time. Hello, my name is Cassie.
I'm Gabs,
We are the 2D UI artists on Stellaris.
and we're gonna talk about machine age UI art.
We had a to-do list of UI icons that needed to be made. I think I made about 40 trait icons for machine age.
The icons were chaotic to do because imagine someone gives you the brief. This icon will basically represent bending reality, and you're like,
And you have to fit that into this size of an
16
icon.
by 16. And you're like, synaptic clave. It's supposed to look like a big brain that your pops are used as science components, so then you can get advanced logic, and then you can create the horizon needle, and then you can go to space. You got to work on the relic too.
Oh yeah, I think the relic was probably the most fun icon I did for Machine Age. It's a brain half where you can see the ship within it. It was like, ooh, fun times. I did some sketches with a ship like on the outside of the brain, but then I had the idea, what if we just really put the ship, just really jam it in there? And I asked content design and the art director, am I allowed? And they were like, gross, do it. And so on the one screen at my workplace, I had the brain I was drawing, and on the other screen, I had references of brain halves, and it was really gross.
The most fun though was the traditions. They have to be illustrated. They have to be more artsy, like. And modularity was fine. Modularity was a transition tree where you could basically like modify your machine pops. So it was fun to imagine machines going on about day to day, like, oh, I'm so sick of my eyes. What if I got another set of eyes?
What if?
Yeah, it's what ifs, you know? So I even made like a little RoboCop. He's like giving you a ticket. You cannot park there, sir. But all of those were really nice. I got to make a little peace dove, but metallic.
Oh yeah.
At first it was looking very scary. It was looking like a killer dove.
Oh yeah, because you had the Terminator eye
Yeah.
on the dove.
Let's end everything with violence.
Another fun thing I got to do was one of the event images, which is not, it's not typically UI. The synthetic fertility event was very unique. It was a very interesting idea how your species have been infected with like an uncurable disease and now they can't reproduce. They are dying. And if they don't do anything, it's game over. So their solution is to make their minds virtual. This is a very sad event, but it's also kind of hopeful because the idea is that you're eventually gonna be able to come back to like the real world in mech bodies. And so I made a bunch of sketches trying to show like this transition from the living realm towards the virtual one. Perfect, that's the one I wanted to make. Yeah, I like how it almost dissolves into the pixels.
Hi, I'm Tim, and I'm a 3D artist working on Stellaris.
My name is Lloyd. I'm a concept artist working on Stellaris.
I would say that the cybernetic chipset is my favorite. I mean, like the main concept that you did for it, the thought behind it was that it has this like hot rod car feeling.
Yeah, like the classic car kind of
exactly.
like old retro stuff. Is there a favorite chip in the chipset?
I think the Titan is
the big chunky one. Like big space gun.
Yeah.
Like all the Titans are like big space guns, but this is like the biggest of like the most space gun of all the ships.
Yeah, and I love that like with the cybernetic chipset that we actually added some extra more like moving parts and like these like panning lights.
The panning lights, and the holograms.
Yeah, well. Exactly. And that actually came in later in the production when we decided to actually have the holograms on the stations.
We had it as like a really early idea for like having it all the ships, and then we ended up just putting it on the station. They feel quite different. Also, the fact that they have so many less windows than most other ships. And also, I thought it was really funny when we were designing them at the machine ships, and I was like, well, I made them symmetrical, left to right, and also top to bottom. It's like, it's what a machine would do anyway, right? Just symmetry, perfection.
Yeah. And it was perfect for us because that optimized a whole lot of hours modeling stuff.
And it made it cooler.
So it was, how you say in Swedish, två flugor i en smäll.
Is it 2 birds, 1 stone?
Exactly, yeah.
Is it exactly the same as that?
Not like directly
what
translated.
What is it in Swedish?
2 flies, 1 hit.
Damn.
Or something. These 2 chipsets are very different from each other, and that's what I also like with it. There are not many similarities, and they have their own unique styles.
Yeah, sometimes that actually made it like really difficult, like because we had pretty like distinct styles for both of them, and then to come up with some of the designs, especially the more complicated designs like the stations, the machine chipset station, that was a real puzzle because we had this like very precise engineered mechanical like machine precision look, and to have this like the stations which are like so many different pieces.
Seeing it all come together was very rewarding as well.
And then I think we started with the cybernetic ships. We started with like, we'll make them chrome because chrome is like cool in the future. Everything is chrome in the future, obviously. And then we were like, let's add some stripes to the chrome, and then the stripes became like thicker than the rest of the chrome.
And then it turned out that the whole hull was like Empire colored, and I think that was a really good and cool decision.
Yeah.
And also makes the chipset more unique.
You were just reminding me about the cybernetic Colossus. That was a really fun one because I mean all the Colossus have like a transformation to them, but we were like, really, let's make it an actual like a real transformer, like make it like. It ended up being this sort of like crab thing.
Yeah.
Where we like expanded out and totally changed the way it looked. I tried to push it as far as possible.
But I'm curious, what was your like favorite chipset of those two?
I think actually the machine ships are my favorite. I love the way they look in red as well. I think it's super cool. And with the stripes, like the geometric patterns, I'm really happy with how those turned out.
I think, I mean, there was a lot of thought behind it, and it looks like these like data ship kind of thing.
Exactly.
And it's also based on the Empire color, so yeah, I think it's very cool.
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 Yeah, I think we're running out of stuff to say.
Yeah.
Can I stab him? It's like.